Welcome to today's podcast from Curacel. Our host today is me, Melvin Malanga. I'm part of the Curacel team, part of the commercial team. I'm really happy and thrilled to be here today. We're being joined by Wangeci Kanjama, a leader whose career span through telcos, fintech, Insurtech, and also one of the fastest Africa growing mobility sectors. She currently is the group CFO for Spiro and a non-executive director at Holmcom, M-Pesa, and other organizations. She's done so many initiatives, not only for getting profitability for the company she's worked on, but also initiatives to empower women, building sustainable infrastructure, and expanding access to technology. Today, we'll be exploring her role involving executive driving insurance profitability through technology and what leadership is in the AI fast era. Basically, everybody knows right now we are in the opportunity of the century when it comes to AI. So it's very important that we're able to get a view from somebody like her who's had experience being in the forefront of everything when it comes to technology and all in all these boards. So I just let her say hi before maybe we can jump into the questions. Beshi?
Thank you so much, Melvin, for having me. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast and just share thoughts and experiences just based on how technology is evolving. So I do look forward to the session. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I'll start from the beginning. I'll just talk about the bigger picture. So traditionally, executive insurance are expected to safeguard and stability and manage risk. How is this mandate shifting in today's AI environment, fast technology where things are changing day by day?
So I think the whole point about a big picture opportunity is to really understand what are the key cornerstones that really drive an effective AI strategy in the world of insurance. So having reflected on what this can mean, especially for businesses that are doing insurance in Africa, it's very, very important, one, to have the board and the senior level management of any company aligned. AI, when it comes to its fruits, when it comes to its successes, is very much about an enterprise approach. So it's the kind of technology that is not necessarily left at one function or role where you say, for example, it's just the role of the IT department. I think also it is increasingly evident as technology becomes more pervasive and more embedded into everything that people are doing, that once a business adopts a more cross-functional approach, a more enterprise approach, then they think through the technology and its impact for the company as a whole, and also look to ensure that it is more strategically aligned to the strategic priorities of the business. So when you think about the big picture, there must be proper alignment end-to-end within the business. There must also be a very clear understanding of AI technology. There is the presumption that it may be as rudimentary as just thinking about automation, but the important thing is that AI technology is taking your technology to the next level through intelligence. So it's a much more intelligent form of technology that allows a business to be able to enhance and use its data as a strategic lever. So businesses must get into the discussions around what AI will mean for them as a business. They must identify which strategic priorities align best with their proposed AI strategy, and they must be able to articulate and measure this effectively, not only within their internal ecosystem, but also to external stakeholders at large. So it's a very important initiative to think through very well. And it's also the kind of initiative that doesn't necessarily happen immediately, but definitely does bring about immediate gains, but has a sustainable impact if implemented diligently over a course of time to really transform the way insurance is done.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. So you said the most important thing, first of all, is to align with the technology. You've also said, secondly, you need to understand what technology is coming in. and then look at how you can be able to leverage that to see how much impact it will have on you. So that is really good. Just maybe a follow-up question on the setting the stage, the big picturing part of things. You've heard before saying that by 2030, most successful insurance won't just be strong on the balance sheet, but strong on also algorithms. What does that mean for leadership at the board and the executive level?
So what this really, for me, means as one of those leaders who then is sitting at a board and also thinking through the strategy of a business from an insurance perspective, is that data will be currency. It's very much borrowing from the analogy in the telecommunication industry where we moved from voice to data, and data began to underpin almost the way most of the business was done within the industry. Everything had a data layer to it, whether it was voice, whether it was mobile money transfer, whatever it is, was underpinned by data. Now, as you look at what AI can do for a lot of businesses within the insurance industry, it's all about how you leverage on data. The interesting thing about this data analogy or data differentiation opportunity within insurance, it doesn't necessarily have to be data from 40 or 50 years ago. This is data that you can collect on a real-time basis that you enhance with both internal and external sources of data, but you put together that data set much more intelligently, and with the use of AI, then you improve the ability of the insights that come from that data, whether they be predictive, whether they be diagnostic, whether they be analytical, to drive better insights into how the business can grow and scale. So definitely it is not something to be ignored. Businesses do need to understand increasingly we are in a digital environment, and digital first businesses will be the ones that really weather the headwinds that will come from any disruptive technology that will give way to new ways of engaging customers. So data for me is at the heart of this discussion and must be harnessed in such a way that the business understands their data, can ensure their data has the right levels of integrity, that their AI system is also credible and within the set guardrails of whatever regulation exists. So data is what is a key differentiation for any business as they think very clearly about their AI strategy. But this is not necessarily data that is held within a particular function. This is a 360 view of the data that is within a particular organization and how they harness the collective impact of that data to inform how they make decisions going forward. So you move from having a lot of fragmented silo kind of data insights into having a more holistic view of your customer through the data insights that are coming from different parts of the business.
That's a powerful framing, really powerful, because there's this statement that everybody says about data being king, but it's not really data. Like you've mentioned, you need to have that 360 angle of looking at your data and seeing how you can be able to anchor on that. I really like that. So let's drill down to profitability. You've also spoken about the 5 technology driven levers. So precision in pricing, cost for containment, lifetime consumer value, new revenue streams, and also fraud reduction. Which of these do you think boards and directors should be putting on the table right now in strategic conversations? And how can executives build alignment across business operations and technology to really unlock these levers?
So I think for me, what is important is to understand that it is not technology for technology's sake. It is technology within the context of how a business can improve its service delivery to the customer. So what is important is to understand what is the problem that the business has. Is it a problem to do with fraud? Is it a problem to do with customer onboarding? Is it a problem to do with claims adjudication? What is the problem that the business is facing? Because remember, the use cases for AI are not necessarily the same, but they are known. So the question then becomes, for it to make sense for the business must say, what is the problem we are solving? What is the issue we want to tackle? Is it that we want new revenue, and that new revenue is better launched using AI as a platform? Whatever the issue, it is not one size fits all. So you can't necessarily say that we will prioritize it just based on what we know. It will be, for it to be worth the board's time, for it to be worth senior management's time, it has to be something that the board and the senior management jointly understand is an issue. It has to be something that they see can give fairly quick returns to build the credibility needed so as to be able to scale the solution. It has to be something that they can articulate and understand so that as the implementation is going on, the KPIs required to measure the return on investment, or the time that it will take, or the regulations that will be impacted, or how it will change the business or impact the way they interact with the customer will be clear. So it is the context that will drive the priorities of where the focus and the efforts around AI will be put.
Yeah, so I like that. So basically, you have also to follow your metrics to see how this impacts everything around you. So that's very important. Let's now go into automation. At Curacel, we see Claims 2.0 being powered by NLP, image recognition, and even drones, reshaping the core of insurance operations. You've worked at the intersection of finance and operations. How should executives think about automation, not just as cost saving, but as a fuel for investment into innovation and growth?
I think the truth is, when you look at insurance, first of all, you have to understand that the penetration for insurance across Africa is fairly low. So definitely when you think about what AI would be doing, AI would be a critical growth enabler. When you see some of the challenges that are there across the continent, a lot of those challenges are to do with climate and the change in climate. And so what is happening is that as traditional insurance models evolve, there is a requirement within the market to give solutions that are there in keeping with some of the disruptions that we are seeing, especially in the world of agriculture, and how whether the weather and the climate impacts that kind of ecosystem. So what is important is that penetration is low. So from a growth perspective, you can increase and drive insurance penetration by being able to create newer products that are more relevant for the context in which a lot of the businesses are operating today. Secondly, one of the pain points is insurance now needs to move more with the mobile technology, in the sense that a lot of the onboarding mechanisms are more around the phone as opposed to being around filling in forms and more offline mechanisms. The other thing is that the insurance literacy levels across the continent are not necessarily the same, and therefore being able to communicate the needs in a way that the customer can understand, whether it's in their local language, whether it is in a language other than maybe English, is important. So getting back to the heart of the question, the issue then becomes, is it a growth lever? Definitely. It is a growth lever when you think about new revenues. It is a growth lever when you think about how to get new segments of customers that you can't get through traditional channels. It is a growth lever when you think about an omni-channel strategy where you want to use your digital distribution framework to reach more customers, either through embedded insurance because you're leveraging off third-party platforms. So it's a very diverse mechanism for growth. Once again, the principle is to really focus on where the impact can be seen fairly quickly and tested in a manner that can give the right credibility to show that it can solve the problem that the business has. So the use case for AI is definitely all round. It does help you save money, but it also helps you grow opportunities. And there's a lot of studies that have been done on the challenges of insurance across Africa. And definitely AI has come at a very opportune time when a lot of the players within the industry can rethink their growth strategies and their scaling strategies and their cross-border strategies so as to get more customers, reduce their loss ratios, increase their revenues, and serve a wider net of customers.
Okay, I like that, how you stated that it's very important for you to be able to see easy goals. So basically, fast impact. And the best way to do this is to identify the lowest hanging fruits of where you can have impact when you're using AI on this. So that's really insightful. Yeah, so with AI, just like with any other technology that we've had before, there are many questions that come when it comes to governance, and also its opportunities. For you, on your previous role at Spiro, you've been able to balance sustainability goals with business performance. And at Mutual right now, governance is core. So my question is, how do directors balance shareholders' pressure for profitability with ethical regulatory imperatives on responsible AI? And even beyond regulators, how can executive earn trust from customers, employees, and society with their new model? Just to add on maybe what you had said earlier, where we were supposed to speak the customer's language to be able to get to them. Yeah.
So I think the question that you have asked me is a very important question. And the reason why it's important is one, there is an assumption being made that whether it's at the board level or senior management level, people really understand the language of AI. So for me, I say the first thing is there's AI fluency. AI is an evolving technology that has a lot of insights into how to improve the way business is done. But sometimes people assume that when they're in a room and they're talking about AI, they're all saying the same thing. So I would say one of the things that would really help is for senior leadership and even the board to be trained. I think you should not make the assumption that AI is just simply about automation. AI is actually intelligence that takes systems to greater levels of reasoning, greater levels of learning, improved learning over time, improved decision making, improved insights. So it is a very comprehensive way of running a business using a technology ecosystem. So for that to work credibly and for all the stakeholders to be on the same page, obviously consumers will want to understand their rights. So there's a whole thing of data privacy, there's a whole thing of customer consent, there's a whole thing of how long you keep their data, how long you store their data, what changes can be made, etc. So there's education required for the customer, and responsible organizations will need to undertake that. However, from a governance perspective, when boards and senior management are looking, what is good is that they are actually established AI frameworks that are actually globally known and accepted. And a blend of those frameworks actually provide a very important reference point for organizations to avoid experimentation with AI as opposed to following fairly broad-based but well-crafted guidelines that help the business navigate the AI landscape. One of those particular frameworks is what we call the ISO 42001, which is there to help you understand your policy frameworks for AI, your roles and accountabilities, and how to bring the ecosystem within the organization together and move ahead. In places like the European Union, they already have the European Union AI requirements, which are very mandatory for businesses of insurance that are operating within that ecosystem. And where they fail to adhere to those requirements, they can get quite hefty fines. So that's a mandatory framework that is beginning to impact the way AI is adopted by insurance companies within the EU. We also have something called NIST, which is the National Insurance Standards and Technology Framework, which also is embedding AI into the way insurance companies should look at it so that they're able to have guidelines. So basically, when it comes to governance, work has already started, and there are credible bodies that are good reference points for many companies to start saying, what is our strategy from a board perspective? How are we aligning from an executive perspective? And if we therefore need to give credibility, whether we are being audited, whether we are undertaking a review, whether we are rolling out a product, whether we are speaking to our regulator, what is the governance language that we will be using that both parties will understand so that we move the discussion forward? So I think the good news is there is interest in AI, there is training for AI, and there are policy frameworks for AI. So ignorance in this particular regarding governance is not a defense. People should proactively get very engaged and start learning and keeping abreast of the policy frameworks that are unfolding and are fairly complementary. And therefore, there should be a lot of work put into thinking through which policy do we adopt as a business that is going to help us begin to lay the right foundation for our AI strategy and AI implementation.
Right. Thank you for that. I think there's something there mentioned, which is ignorance right now is not an excuse. And you've mentioned something that maybe most of my audience will not have known about, which is ISO 42001, which has got to do with artificial intelligence policies. So it's something people should check out. And like you've mentioned, it's very important to stay abreast with what is happening so that you don't find yourself in the wrong side of things. Yeah. So with that, I think I can anchor back now into something that maybe now can be used for reference, which is basically case studies. Globally, we've had examples of case studies from Zurich for automating claims. We've had AXA for saving millions of AI-driven fraud detection systems. But even closer home, we have several other people we've heard about talking about AI and profitability. So we'd like to know maybe from where you see it. Have you seen any leadership decisions around AI that have delivered direct profitability gains?
So one of the things that I do is I track a lot of companies across Africa that are looking to increase insurance penetration through AI. And I think this is good, and it provides a lot of context and confidence for many other players within the African continent. One of those players is Pula. So within the agri space, they have managed to come up with a very good and viable solution that speaks to the challenges that farmers would have, and therefore they have a very good crop insurance solution, and that solution allows for them to be able to provide insurance to smallholder farmers and therefore create the right financial inclusion and the right safety nets for farmers as they continue to grow their crops in these very volatile times. So that model has been tried and tested, and it has been found to be successful, and therefore is something that can be replicated for different types of products. Obviously, there are quite a variety of products or crops, for argument's sake, that can fall within that particular product portfolio and allow many more insurers to come into the agricultural space and support farmers and help them de-risk some of the challenges they face. The other credible one, which I found very interesting, is one in Nigeria. It's called the Air Insurance Group, and they've managed to also drive penetration within that particular market within the rural areas by offering insurance that allows for customers who they wouldn't be able to approach using other channels to be able to be part of the insurance ecosystem. And then within South Africa, there's a discovery program that is also very, very successful. And that discovery program is one that also takes into account the behaviors of the customer when it comes to their health habits, how they take their medicine, when they go to the gym, etc., etc. And that program has resulted in improved profitability for the health part of that business, and is a very successful, well-tried and well-tested program that has worked very successfully on the back of AI. So those are just a few examples that are there for areas that have been pain points, whether you talk about health, whether you talk about life, whether you talk about general insurance. So the exciting thing about AI in the insurance space is that it does provide for new use cases and provides for the use of real-time data and progressively growing data that will allow businesses to offer progressively more enhanced and relevant solutions to the customers at a much more affordable cost, and also lower the risks that come with fraud, that come with onboarding challenges, etc. So those are some of the considerations that I've seen that are workable. And even within Kenya, we do have some very good examples. So I would say in different parts of the continent, whether you talk about West Africa, whether you talk about South Africa, East Africa, there is evidence that companies that are beginning to look at these solutions are starting to make headway. I know a lot within East Africa, a lot of the use cases are around fraud mitigation because of the challenges of insurance fraud, and that is beginning to get a lot of traction and helping quite a few companies within the East African ecosystem from an insurance perspective manage their fraud risks.
Yeah, for fraud detection, I think that is one of the biggest impacts we've had for insurance companies across Africa. It's been a big challenge for them. Yeah, so for discovery, I think that is an amazing use case whereby they get into your lifestyle and you're able to have it wherever you go with it. So you're able to know if you're gymming or even your eating habits and all that. It really is a good use case. Yeah, so for Pula, I've heard about Pula and what they're doing. They even managed to raise their Series B funding. So those are really good use cases. For the air insurance group, I've not heard about them, but I think I'll do more research on them so that I get to understand this. I know you're in these areas, so you know better. And I'm also getting educated myself as also my audience get educated. So I really like that. Yeah, so maybe just looking ahead, looking at the future. Let's talk about the future. You know, with AI, we feel like the future has arrived, right? It's like this is what we were talking about when technology was somewhere, but now technology can talk to us. So let's talk about 2030, the executive of 2030. Your framework calls on leaders to own the AI ROI and embed it into risk models and strategies. What skills, tools, and mindset will the next generation of insurers executive need? And if you are advising a new board member today, what should be the priority in terms of learning fast? A very interesting one.
I think that's a very important question. And I think
Yeah.
as I've begun to appreciate the way impact will change business in 2030, I realize that the world will increasingly be driven a lot by technology. We'll be living increasingly in a technology immersed world where things are much more intelligent, where there's much more connectedness about understanding who a person is and the different data points about that particular person. Could be your customer, could be, a whole dynamic even in terms of understanding a product. So a new board member today should really start getting a bit more AI fluent. And to get AI fluent, I would say it is very important for board members to proactively be trained. So one is have a very clear training framework for directors of boards, because if you don't get trained, remember directors are supposed to be very strategic in their approach and very forward looking.
Yeah.
You're in 2030, technology is changing very, very quickly. If by 2030 you didn't make the right decisions in 2025, you'll be left behind. So it's very easy to be in a technology world, but to be offline, interestingly enough, because you're not embracing the enterprise framework with which technology is coming into organizations. So advising a new board member, I tell them it is very, very important to get trained. It's important to have a very clear AI governance charter that speaks to the roles and responsibilities of the different stakeholders in the ecosystem, from the regulator to the board to the senior management to the different functions, so that there's a lot more cohesion and a lot more coordination in how AI begins to deliver value. It's very, very important that the KPIs that drive the impact of AI are understood. So understanding, how do we measure success? Is it how many products are AI enabled? How many frauds are AI detected? How many customer journeys are done on AI, etc., etc. So the more clarity there is around what is being measured and what is expected as output is important. It's also important to define very clearly the systems that are AI supported, the policies and the regulations that will govern it. So there is quite a bit of work to be done, but I would say attend as many conferences as possible, interact a lot with other industrial players, and have a much more proactive discussion with management as to what AI will mean for the business, because it's more of a shared engagement as opposed to an engagement where one or two or three stakeholders are convinced, but the rest of the organization is not convinced. So I would say there's still a lot of work for everyone. And there is an individual responsibility, but from a corporate perspective, AI must be embedded in the strategy. It must be tied to a problem that the business does want to address, and then it must be effectively monitored within a framework that is already tried and tested, so that the guardrails are well defined. So that's where I think I would start in terms of advising a board member, but it continues to evolve, and therefore board members must be proactive based on their own interests, their own skill sets, and also the industry in which they will find themselves as board members.
Oh, that's amazing. I think for advice for somebody who's coming in as a board member, I think that would be amazing because you touch on really the important things. One, on what to measure. Secondly, on just making sure you understand what you're implementing. Thirdly, where you have to involve everybody in the company in such decisions, especially with AI. Because we've seen even us as Curacel, when we go out to talk about AI, you need to involve all the stakeholders because they are affected differently. There's somebody who the turnaround time is the most important thing. There's somebody else who fraud is what should be eradicated. So yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, as we wrap up, this has been
Just
really
emphasize,
yeah,
if I may just emphasize, sorry to interrupt you, but if
yeah,
I may just emphasize,
okay.
AI fluency is important. My biggest takeout from my studying and reading on AI is not to assume that when we speak about AI, we are speaking about the same thing. There are terminologies, there are frameworks. It's very easy for someone to say, are you talking about automation or are you talking about AI? So
Mm,
one of the critical things that I think people should be asking themselves, what is AI and what is AI not? It may sound like a very obvious question, but if you actually do a poll or a survey, you may find that people are mixing up things. Is AI automation? Is AI robotics? What is AI exactly within the context of our business? Because if that is not understood, that AI is actually an intelligent technology framework that takes your data strategy to the next level, then you may find that the discussion doesn't take off correctly. So my biggest learning and something I'm reflecting on very seriously is to ensure that my fluency in AI continues to grow and evolve with AI as a technology because AI continues to evolve. So if you do not understand the foundational aspects of AI, then you will not be able to make useful contributions that will help you and help the organization in which you find yourself being part of.
amazing, amazing. So you've just given us a hint. To start our foundation in AI or build our AI fluency, you just start with a simple question. What is AI and what is not AI? So that will really help because like you've mentioned already, there's so much automation that is going on in organizations and assuming that that automation already is AI and it has been there before the AI came in, it's really a wrong thing to do. So yeah, so that's really insightful. Yeah, so like I was saying, this has been a really rich conversation. And as we wrap up, we've talked about a lot of things. And my biggest takeaway for myself personally is now what you just mentioned last, which is AI fluency, and get to see where I am with that. So I'll start with that question. If we fast forward to 2030, what does truly AI-powered executive team look like inside a successful insurer? So this is just basically a follow-up on the AI fluency. So assuming the executive team is now AI fluent in terms of what they're able to do, what does it look like in terms of their success?
So I think for me, in terms of the people, because many people think about AI and they start immediately thinking that they're irrelevant. Whereas what happens is when you are in an AI ecosystem, each of the particular stakeholders takes on new added responsibilities that anchor the AI strategy much, much better. So at a board level, you're asking yourselves, what have we embedded in our board charter to drive AI as a strategy that the board is looking at keenly to help the organization move forward? So is it anchored in your governance charter as a board? So if you are part of a board where AI is not being discussed, AI is not a strategy, AI it doesn't seem to be top priority, then obviously then within that context of 2030, there's something you're missing out. Within the structure of the organization, when you think about a fit for purpose organization, then you think at the core you need somebody in charge of your data. So this chief data officer who could be anchored and complemented by an AI strategy officer or an AI director work hand in hand to make sure that AI becomes a strategic lever, growth lever for the organization. It's not just embedded within an IT ecosystem and seen just as an IT technology, but it's brought forth and center as a C-suite role that takes data as a strategy to the next level and ensures that it is anchored very well within how the organization evolves. With that as well will come the whole issue around the ethical side of AI, the regulations that will impact the way that organization will speak to its customers regarding the ethics of how their information is being used, that helps them have discussions with the regulator, that make sure that the regulator is also on the same page with them regarding AI. You will also need to think about AI products, or a product owner who is able to really think about products within the context of AI will be critical. And then obviously from time to time, depending on how the product is positioned, you may need change agents or change enablers. So I've come from ecosystems. When you're developing products, you think about agile teams, and what happens within an AI space is that you become much more cross-functional. So to ensure that your organization is able to move forward, you have more cross-functional teams working together to be able to drive products or solutions or services that customers will want in the future. So those are the basics. Obviously, certain organizations could skew or lean towards a certain direction, but I think strategically there would be 3 levels. Where is AI at the board? Which committee is tasked with driving the AI strategy and working more with management to ensure it's properly embedded and that the board and management are aligned? That's a board consideration. Where is it in terms of the C-suite? Where is it sitting? Who exactly has the responsibility? How are they supporting the CEO to drive the strategy? From a HR or human capital perspective, there are interesting dynamics that come with AI. What is apparent is that you will have people who need either to be focused on AI, people who need to be reskilled so as to be able to work within an AI environment, but you will also have digital resources that you previously weren't considering but are part of your ecosystem. I mean, some of the examples that are there in the future is a person speaking more with their machines than they are speaking with people. So it's a blend of human resources, and it's also a blend of AI resources. So learning to work in that kind of ecosystem is also very interesting and very dynamic. So it's a whole transformation, and therefore each of the functions, in my view, apart from having probably new functions that are very AI focused, would need to start saying, for argument's sake, I am a CFO, but how am I embedding AI into my finance strategy so as to take the finance function forward? I handle risk for the business. Where is AI sitting so that I'm able to progress that? I handle compliance. I handle this. The thing is, AI has come at a time when we have a data explosion. There is so much more data. So learning to use that data intelligently, learning to remove the friction around how that data flows in an organization will be very important to informing the kind of structure that the organization will have that will drive their execution and help them serve their customers better. So again, I would say there, it's not one size fits all. It's to understand what are our strategic priorities, how do we want to serve the customer and grow our business, and therefore what is the right fit for purpose structure that will complement that, understanding that AI continues to evolve. AI has new skill sets that weren't previously there, and it's a blend of those skill sets that will help our organization succeed. So it needs to be thought about very deliberately, anchored very well at the highest level, but embedded very well throughout the organization so that there's cohesiveness, harmony, and a good flow of outcomes that benefit the customer. Because it's not just AI for AI's sake. Otherwise, if your customers are not staying on, you're not acquiring them easily, they're not staying well with you, then it isn't having the gains that you may had hoped to get. So it has to be thought about very carefully and very cross-functionally so that the benefits unlock very well.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So it's just not AI for AI's sake, but it's AI coming in to push our strategic goals to even be easier to achieve. So thank you so much for sharing your insights. This has really been an amazing conversation. It's inspiring to hear from a leader like you, who's achieved a lot so far, and there's a lot more coming your way. So yeah, thank you for making time today. I would like also to thank our listeners for tuning in into the Curacel podcast. I hope you really enjoyed today's podcast and got a lot to learn. Have a great evening and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Melvin, for having me on the podcast. Thank you very much.
Okay. It's been a good one. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.